Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience. I'm here tonight with a video that's a little bit different than anything I've done before. This isn't a review, this isn't an update, but I wanted to do a video about an issue that I was just reminded of again last night, and that's the quality control of Hifiman headphones. And that apparently is still a question, it's still an issue. Is there a problem with quality control with Hifiman? And I thought that that was kind of in the past, but just last night I was reading someone asked a recommendation for a headphone. I don't remember the price range, but anyway, there were several recommendations for Hifiman headphones in the price range they were asking for. And I noticed a couple of comments from people that said something to the effect of, I would never buy a Hifiman headphone because of the quality issues and the problems they've had in the past. And I know when I first started the headphone experience, and that was and in case you don't know, I am the administrator and the creator of the Headphone Experience on Facebook that has, we're now at over 23,000 members. And I created that back in November of 2017. So it's been around a while, and I've heard a lot, 1,000 discussions about things like, the quality control and issues with different headphones, and Hifiman used to come up quite a bit. It hasn't been as much lately, but like I said, I saw it again last night, and that was my inspiration to do this video. When I first started out, this was, like I said, fall of 17, there was an issue with the Hifiman HE400i, and it was an issue with the yokes breaking. They were plastic yokes, and a few of their other headphones at that same time had the same plastic yokes. I happened to have the HE560 at that time, and I had it maybe 6 months or so, and I had no issues with the yokes. But my understanding is that Hifiman had outsourced making the yokes, which were made of plastic, and apparently the plastic was brittle or something, and people were having problems with them breaking. And as far as I know, I remember communicating with Mark, I can't think of his last name right now, but anyway, from customer service at Hifiman, and he was telling me, tell anyone that has a problem, that has a broken yoke, contact us and we will replace the headphone or the yoke or whatever. They seem to, really be concerned about it, and as far as I know, they replaced hundreds or maybe thousands of these yokes with new ones free of cost. I never did have a problem with the yoke on my HE560, and I still have that headphone, and it's that's like 5 years old now, and the yokes never broke, so it was never an issue. So I don't think it was all of them, I think it was just a short period of time. But then it wasn't too much later I started hearing about problems with Hifiman drivers. The drivers either going out and completely failing or having driver imbalance where one driver was louder than the other. And I noticed there was basically 3 groups of people that were involved in these conversations. There were the ones that had maybe several Hifiman headphones and had one fail, and usually it was under warranty, or sometimes even if it wasn't under warranty, I know Hifiman still replaced them. But then I saw people who had multiple failures. I remember reading comments from people that made comments like, I bought 3 Hifiman Sindaras in a row and all 3 of them failed and all 3 were returned. Or I remember reading comments from people that said they had owned 5 or 6 Hifiman headphones that all had driver failures. But then on the other hand, I would communicate or chat, whatever, with people that said, hey, I've owned a dozen Hifiman headphones and never had a problem with any of them. Well, 5 years ago, I had only had 3 Hifiman headphones at that point. I had the HE 500, which was, still got it right here. This was my first Sirius headphone, and I've had this for 11 years now. And for the first 5 years, this was my only Sirius headphone, and I put an outrageous number of hours on this. I probably listened to this for an hour or two every day for the first 5 years I had it. I mean, this thing probably has an absolute minimum of a couple thousand hours on it, and it still works like new. Yeah, I've changed the grills. I did a grill mod on it. Gave it a little bit more open sound stage, and I do have Kennerton ear pads on it, which are sheepskin leather that I think improved the sound a little bit, and they're definitely more comfortable. And yes, I will admit that the original ear pads from this, 11 years old, have deteriorated, and you know, they were garbage years ago. And also my HE 560 that is 5 years old, the ear pads on that also deteriorated and needed to be replaced. But so anyway, you know, that's been my big question. Why do some people have so many failures with Hifiman headphones, and others tell me that they've owned, one guy, and I believe he did, he said that he owned every single Hifiman headphone ever made. And he said he never had one have driver failure or imbalance or any problems with any of them. So, you know, this is what I've been trying to figure out. Why such a difference? Why do some people have such good luck with Hifiman headphones and others don't? So anyway, I've reached the point now where I've been doing reviews for almost 5 years now. And during this time, I have owned or reviewed 14 different Hifiman headphones now. 14 headphones and one Hifiman IEM. And that the HE 500, like I pointed out, I've had for 11 years. The HE 560, 6-7 years now. The Sundara, I've had for 5 years. I have a pair of RE 400 IEMs that I've had for 6 years. I reviewed the original Aria version 1, the Diva Pro, the Aria Stealth, the HE 400 SE, the Edition XS, the Ananda non-stealth model, the Sundara Closeback, the Ananda Stealth, the HE 1000 SE, which I currently have in for review, then the HE R9 and the HE 1000 Stealth that I currently have in, totaling 14 different headphones from Hifiman that I've either owned or reviewed. And when I review something, I'm usually looking at a period of 2 to 3 months, and I put a minimum of probably 30 hours on a headphone I review. And to be honest, I have never had one failure. I have not had one driver failure. I have not had any imbalance between the drivers. I have had one cable failure. The Sundara, a short time after I got it, if I wiggled the cable at all or moved my head while I was listening to it, the left channel would cut out, and I found out that the problem was in the end connection, the 3.5 millimeter connection of the cable. I contacted Hifiman. They sent me a new one in the mail. I had it within a week. No charge. So they took care of it right away. But other than that one cable failure, I have not had a failure of a driver with a Hifiman headphone. So once again, why is this happening? And I do have a theory, but I don't know if it's true, if it's really the case, but I was trying to figure out the different reasons why someone might have a driver failure. And the first thing that comes to mind is maybe they're overdriving it. Maybe they're putting too much power into it. And I usually don't listen to my headphones very loud because I want to preserve my hearing. So I can maybe do this, review thing for a few years. But once in a while, I do listen pretty loud. And I've used amps with a lot of power. So I don't think using an amp with too much power as an example, or the issue, because I've used amps such as the Audio GD Master 9, which is rated at like 9 watts per channel. I reviewed the Wells Audio Milo, which is rated, I think, 15 watts per channel. I've used for quite a while, I used the Emotiva A1 Bass X, which is a speaker amp that can put the entire 50 watts per channel into 8 ohms out of the headphone jack if you insert a couple of jumpers into it. And I used it that way. And I tried every one of, my early Hifiman headphones with that amp capable of putting 12.5 watts into 32 ohms. I did it with the HE500, the HE560. I used quite a bit with that amp. The Sundara, I even tried the original Aria version 1 with that, and it sounded great. So also the Burson Conductor 3 Reference. It's an amp that puts out 8 watts per channel. So I don't think it's using an amp with too much power is the issue. So could it be that these people that are having multiple driver failures, are they just listening at outrageous volumes for long periods of time? I can't imagine anyone could do that long enough to damage the headphone without damaging their ears first. I mean, I've listened pretty loud to a point that it's actually uncomfortable without doing any damage to any of my Hifiman headphones. So, what is it? And I do have one theory, and that is, I've noticed that a few of these people that talked about having multiple driver failures, that they also used EQ and gave their headphones a pretty heavy bass boost. Well, it's a well-known fact that a lot of the lower-end Hifiman headphones, including the 500, the 560, the 400i, the Sundara, a lot of people didn't feel that these headphones had enough bass, and it was very common for people to boost the bass. Well, what I think a lot of people don't realize is that just a 3 decibel boost in the bass doubles the required power from your amp. Okay, every time you increase the volume by 3 decibels, and that includes using an EQ and bumping the bass, and especially the bass, more so than any other frequencies, when you boost the bass, you're requiring a lot more power from your amp. So say you boost the bass 3 decibels. Now you're doubling the amount of power that you need from your amp to give your headphones a clean signal. Okay, if you boosted 6 decibels, now you've doubled it twice, so you're actually at 4 times the amount. If you go to a 9 decibel boost, you've now doubled it 3 times, so you're now at 8 times the power required from your amp. And it's very common to hear people say that they boost the bass 12 decibels. I know i-Fi amps, the Zencan and Zendac, and all those have a button that will boost the bass 12 decibels. Well, boosting the bass 12 decibels is a 3 decibel bass boost 4 times. So you've doubled the bass, the power requirement 4 times, which means you now need 16 times the amount of power to produce that bass in a clean signal going to your headphones. Well, say, okay, and Hifiman headphones are planar magnetic, most of these. They've made a few dynamic drivers, but most planar magnetic headphones and Hifiman are well known for being hard to drive. They need a lot of power. So say you're listening at a level that you need 100 milliwatts of power to listen to your headphones. Well, that's not a whole lot of power. It's not going to damage your headphones, definitely won't. And most amps can provide that. But now you give that headphone, or you give an EQ signal that boosts the bass by 12 decibels, you now need 16 times that 100 milliwatts from your amp to produce the same level of sound in the mids and highs, but to give that bass a boost of 12 decibels. Okay, so now instead of 100 milliwatts, you need 16 times that amount, which is 1.6 watts or 1600 milliwatts. Well, a lot of headphone amps can't produce that much power cleanly. They're gonna, what they call it is you're reaching a point where you're clipping the signal, and that's not only causing distortion, but it can damage the drivers. And I try to give you, this is a really simplified version of what clipping is. Okay, if you look at this top diagram here, this would be your typical sine wave of your signal. Okay, like I said, this is simplified, but this is your neutral point, and your signal coming into your headphone is an alternating current that swings from positive to negative, back and forth. Okay, when your amp has an adequate amount of power, that forms a smooth arc. Okay, but if you try to get more power from your amp than it's capable of, you turn the volume up to the point where your amp is distorting. Now what happens is you clip the top off of these sine waves here, and you have flat tops on them. So you're trying to drive it up further, but the amp can't do that, and it flattens the top off of your sine waves. Okay, so now your driver on your headphone, when you're putting a smooth sine wave into it, it's moving in and out, nice and even, and it's always moving. It's moving like this, in and out, and that motion is dissipating the heat created by the current coming into the coil or the diaphragm or whatever on your driver. It's dissipated well when it's moving in a smooth motion. But if you clip the signal, what's happening is your driver's going out, stopping, in, stopping, out, stopping, and it's going back. Instead of being a nice smooth in and out, it's stopping and it's just a microsecond, but each time, each phase of that signal, you're going in and out, and you're stopping at each end. And when that diaphragm is not moving, it's not dissipating the heat. The quickest way to blow a speaker, say, because just a regular house speaker is going to be the same way. When you have drivers or a headphone using drivers, it doesn't matter. The quickest way to blow a speaker is to use an underpowered amp and clip the signal, and where that speaker is going in and out but stopping at each end. And I think that could be why some people are having so many problems with their headphones, is they're using an underpowered amp, trying to get too much power out of it, more than it's capable of, and driving the amp into clipping. Okay, I'm not saying this is always the case. I'm not saying that Hifiman hasn't, ever produced a defective driver or a driver with a problem. But I'm just saying that it just seems like I see people that just have problems, one headphone after another from Hifiman, and then others that never have a problem with Hifiman. And I'm thinking there's got to be something that these people are doing that is at least contributing to the driver failure of so many headphones. And that's really all I can think of. And like I said, I've read some of these conversations, and it seemed that some of these people that had multiple driver failures with Hifiman headphones were heavily boosting the bass. Okay, I've used EQ. I boosted the bass on some of my headphones, but I usually never go beyond 3 or 4 decibels of bass boost. But like I said, in 3 decibels, only doubling the amount of power, and I'm using some heavy duty amps that can produce that power. But like I said, if you're using, a smaller amp that can only put out maybe 1 watt, maybe even 2 watts, but if you're trying to boost the bass where you're getting some serious bass out of it, you could very easily be pushing your amp to the point of clipping, and there's nothing that's going to take a driver out faster than that. So in my opinion, I really don't think, there was definitely a problem with with the yokes breaking at one time. I think Hi-Fi Man did a pretty good job of addressing that and resolving the problem. And I haven't heard lately as many complaints about driver failures, but I still hear it, and there's still a lot of conversation about it. Are Hi-Fi Man headphones reliable? And yes, I will admit, Hi-Fi Man uses a lot of plastic and synthetic materials, like for their ear pads and stuff. They're not built the way a ZMF is with the wooden ear cuffs, or a Kennerton or something like that. But I don't think there's any doubt that Hi-Fi Man produces some really good headphones for the price. I mean, in just about every price category, I think they build a headphone that sounds as good or better than most of their competition. But it just seems that, they're still carrying this reputation of failed drivers. And like I said, I'm trying to see a pattern, trying to figure out why some people are having so many problems and why others haven't. Like I said, I don't know how many people that I've had conversations with that have had multiple Hi-Fi Man headphones, some of them a dozen or more, and never had a driver failure. And I just figured there's got to be some reason, there's got to be some connection. And that's kind of what I'm coming up with. I'm thinking that that's probably the one thing that most of these people have in common. They're using an underpowered amp, EQing it, heavily EQing a lot of bass into it, and overdriving their amp. And if you're clipping, especially in the bass, that's really hard to hear. And a lot of people, very few people can hear distortion at even 1%. But when you get down into the bass, I think most people probably can't hear distortion until it's somewhere up in the 10% range. And at that point, you could be heavily clipping your signal coming from your amp to your headphone. And like I said, it's very likely you're going to damage the amp if you do that for any amount of time. So that's what I'm coming up with. And I really personally feel that Hi-Fi Man doesn't deserve the bad rap they've got and continue to have. And there's so many people out there that still will not buy a Hi-Fi Man headphone because of that, because they read, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, or maybe last night that Hi-Fi Man has a problem with driver failures. But like I said, I haven't experienced it. I've had 14 Hi-Fi Man headphones now and have not experienced any driver failures. But I try to listen to them at a reasonable level. I don't use heavy EQ. And, I try not to abuse these headphones because most of them are on loan and I need to return these. And I don't want to return them damaged because I returned a few damaged headphones and I'm not going to get any more loaners. So I try to take care of them the best I can. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Once again, this is William from the Headphone Experience. If this video helped you, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. And please join us over at the Headphone Experience on Facebook. We are at over 23,000 members now. And once again, thanks for watching my video.